Vacha Evam yukto rishikesho gudakeshana bharata senayar upayor madhe sthapayitva rathotatam. Sanjaya said, O descendant of Bharata, having thus been addressed by Arjuna, Lord Krishna drew up the fine chariot in the midst of the armies of both parties. Does anybody want to read the purport?
Yes, Mataji, if I can.
Please.
Hare Krishna. In this verse, Arjuna is referred to as Gudakesha. Gudaka means sleep, and one who conquers sleep is called Gudakesha. Sleep also means ignorance. So Arjuna conquered both sleep and ignorance because of his friendship with Krishna. As a great devotee of Krishna, he couldn't forget Krishna even for a moment, because that is the nature of a devotee. Either in waking or in sleep, a devotee of the Lord can never be free from thinking of Krishna's name, from form, qualities, and pastime. Thus, a devotee of Krishna can conquer both sleep and ignorance simply by thinking of Krishna constantly. This is called Krishna consciousness, or Samadhi, as Rishikesha, or the director of the senses and mind of every living entity. Krishna could understand Arjuna's purpose in placing the chariot in the midst of the armies. Thus, he did so and spoke as follows. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mitali Mataji. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada. Jai. Before we start, we'll just recite our prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatirubhascha Kripa Sindhubheva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadeshatarine. Thank you all for coming. We are very fortunate that we are able to recite and read the Bhagavad-Gita every day. So we'll continue on this particular chapter where, as we all know, it's all the soldiers have gathered on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and Arjuna obviously is very, very distressed. Being a devotee of the Lord, he has a lot of compassion, and in his mind, he has come up with various reasons why this war should not happen. So there is this conversation that is happening right now. Actually, Krishna has not really started speaking as yet. It is only Arjuna who is kind of, talking about how he is confused, and he's asking Krishna. At this point here, he's asked Krishna to take the chariot so that he can see who all have come to fight this battle. So here, so as we've already discussed in the previous verses, that although Sanjay and Dhritarashtra are not on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. In fact, they are in the palace at Hastinapur. But Sanjay is able to relate everything that is happening at the battlefield. In fact, it is a live show that is going on. All of us nowadays, we can understand, when somebody is reporting live from wherever the incident is happening. And in this case, we can see that Sanjay is actually reporting live, although he's not on the battlefield, but he's able to report live, and it's like it's the spiritual television where Sanjay is sitting in the palace, but he's able to see it. And we have discussed this before, that how because of the mercy of his Guru Maharaj, he is able to do it. So yes, today we have, very, very great technology where we have the television, where we are able to see all of that. So science is advancing quite a lot. But imagine that so many thousands of years back also, there was so much advancement that this is spiritual advancement, where Sanjay with his spiritual eyes was able to witness everything that was happening. So what we'll do is we'll look at this particular verse, because there are some very important names that are being used here, and why. So the first thing we'll try to understand is Krishna is being addressed as Rishikesh over here. Now, it happens in the Bhagavad Gita in quite a few verses where Krishna is being addressed as Rishikesh. He has been addressed as Rishikesh in verse 1.15 also. And I'm sure the facilitator on that day also spoke about this. But we will also go a little bit, because, the Bhagavad Gita is such that it can be understood from so many different angles. And it's always nice to keep going back to try and understand. So let's look at this thing. So normally, materially, when we see somebody, when we see, what do we see? When we see somebody who's standing in front of you, what do you see? Somebody wants to volunteer the answer, so we'll have a little bit of interactive session.
You just see the person's body.
Correct.
You just see the external.
Correct. So what you see is, like, here this gentleman is looking at the mirror. What he's seeing is, he's seeing the external body, so he's seeing his eyes and nose and etc. I just use this another image just to show how our eyes could fall into illusion. Because this image over here could be seen from different angles. Either you could see two people, two bodies, or you could actually just see the white columns or pillars. So you see how our senses are so imperfect. That's for another day, but I just thought I'll use it over here. So yeah, when you see somebody, what you see is, you see the person's body, you see their senses, like the legs and hands and eyes and nose and all of that. But what you don't see is, who is the director of the senses, right? So we can't see that. With our eyes, we cannot see the director of the senses. Now, who is the director of the senses? Who do you think is the director of the senses?
Is it Krishna?
Yes, Krishna is the overall.
Ultimately.
Soul, but as individuals?
The soul?
So, living entity? Soul?
Yes, the soul also is the director, but before that, before all of that come into play, the director of the senses is our mind. You see, it is our mind that is telling us to perform various activities using our hands, legs, eyes, mouth, tongue, whatever else. It is the mind. But then there is something else that is controlling the mind as well. Who is controlling the mind? Or what is controlling?
Intelligence.
So it is the intelligence that is controlling the mind. But now the bottom line is, whose intelligence is it?
Soul.
Who is that? Exactly.
Souls.
It is the spirit soul. So at the end of the day, it is the spirit soul from whom the intelligence is coming. That intelligence is controlling the mind, and that mind is the director of all our senses. But like we all already know, and we spoke that the spirit soul, how is that soul getting that power? That is coming from the Paramatma, from the super soul,
Super
who
soul.
is in all the living entities, right? So it is coming from the Paramatma. So Rishika means the Indriya or the senses, and Isha means the Lord of the senses, right?
Recording in progress.
There is a bit of, can I just mute people? So although we are, our soul is covered by so many different layers, when you strip all the layers, you realize that I am actually this soul. Yeah, my intelligence is being given by the super soul, who is Rishikesha. And because Rishikesha is the proprietor of everybody's senses, now, if somebody is the owner, if somebody owns something, then your senses should be used for that person. He is the owner of the senses, right? So, so Krishna is the owner of all of our senses. He is the owner of all of our senses, but he does not control the senses of everybody. And by that, what I mean is that he has given us minute independence. Now, although he is the owner of the senses of the demoniac and the divine, he will not control the senses of the demoniac because he is giving us this independence. So, whose senses does he actually control? He controls the senses of those who are completely surrendered to him, who are devotees.
Recording in progress.
And of course, somebody who is a pure devotee, whose whose senses are only being used for the service of Krishna, then Krishna takes complete charge of such a person's senses. And, and that's why to understand this term Rishikesha in that sense is very important. That, although he is the proprietor of everybody's senses, he doesn't control the senses of everybody because he has given us this minute independence. But the more we become purified and the more we start using our senses to please Krishna, the more we will be able to have this direct connection with him and we will be able to hear his instructions. Right? Now, over here, another very, very interesting aspect of Rishikesha is that he is the controller of everybody's senses. But at this current moment, he is allowing himself to be controlled by his devotee. He is become the servant of his devotee. Arjuna has asked him, take my chariot in the middle of this battlefield, and Krishna is following the instructions. So again, this is in this particular verse, the implication here is that he is being controlled by Arjuna. He's being controlled by the love, by the prema of his devotee, right? So yeah. So it's been explained by our acharyas that yes, although he is the owner and proprietor of all the senses, but he will only be he will only control the senses of his devotees, and he will be controlled by his devotees. Now the problem with us is that we are not turning to him. You know, I'll just give you a small story. So once at a construction site, um, over here in London, we don't have many high-rise apartments, but in India, there are a lot of apartment buildings, high-rise buildings. So once on a construction site, this foreman of the building site was traveling in this lift. You know, you've seen there's a lift that is used to take the material and the people who are working there up. So it is not like a proper building lift, but it is just like external lift, which is used to transport material and people. So this foreman was traveling by the lift, and the lift got stuck. So what he did was he had some money in his pocket, and he thought if he throws the money out, to get attention, because it was so high up that just by screaming and calling out, people would not be able to hear him. So he threw this money, and the people working there picked it up and kind of put it in the pocket, walked away. That happened a couple of times. So eventually he picked up a really large stone and he threw it down, and he hit the head of one of the people working there, one of the men who was working there. And that man immediately looked up to see, where is the stone coming from? Now think of this analogy that when Krishna is giving us everything that we want, and we are happy, everything is great going in our lives, we forget him. We forget to turn towards Krishna. It is only when problems like this stone that hit the man, it is only then he looked up. Where is the stone coming from? It is only when we have problems that is the time we turn to Krishna. Like a lot of our acharyas and speakers talk about how we use God, or how we use Krishna as a spare wheel. We only turn towards him when we have a tire that's punctured. But that is not how we should be. And that is why we are unable to have that direct connection with Rishikesha, although he is within each and every one of us. So once we turn to him in surrender, then we will be able to hear his instructions as well, clearly, right? Okay, the other term that is being used over here is Gudakesha. And that also is very, very important to understand. And Prabhupada explains in the purport that Gudakesha means the conqueror of sleep and also of ignorance. Now, I've used this image very, very visual because a lot of us are in ignorance, and we bury our head in the sand thinking, we know everything, because we're not willing to see what the truth is or what actual knowledge is. Now here Gudakesha, of course, he has conquered his sleep. He's also conquered his ignorance. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that there is actually another meaning for this. And in the word Gudakesha, Akesha, so A means Vishnu, Ba means Brahma. Sorry, Ba, no, it should be Ka. I should have corrected that. I don't know if I can do that now. I'll do that later. Sorry. So that's Ka means Brahma, and Isha means Shiva. So Gudakesha also means somebody who gives the experience of sweetness to all of them, to Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. How? Think about this, that when these are devotees, or these are expansions and devotees of Krishna, when they see Krishna being conquered by a pure devotee like Arjuna, and when they see this sweet interaction between the devotee and the Lord, that experience for a devotee or for the expansion of the Lord is so sweet. It's the same experience that when sugar, and sugar is also good. I'm sure everybody knows that. We refer to the unrefined, the pure form as good. So it is the same way that gur gives you the experience of sweetness. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that that is the reason also why he is called Gudakesha, because he is giving that pleasure. Arjuna is giving that pleasure. By bringing Krishna under his control, he's what is being shown over here is that the Supreme Lord, the crown jewel, from whom everything emanates, who controls everything, is so willingly coming under the control of his devotee. And that is such a sweet interaction between the Lord and the Bhakta. So that's another reason why he's called Gudakesha. Now, another point over here to think about is that we're saying that Arjuna has conquered ignorance. So then the question comes that if he's conquered ignorance, then why is it that he is refusing to fight on the battlefield, giving so many different excuses? That how can I kill these people, and how will I be able to live by committing such a sin, and so many different excuses. But Arjuna should not be an illusion, because he is above, he is the controller of all these material senses. So it is explained that Krishna puts Arjuna in this kind of illusion, because um, so that through Arjuna, Krishna is able to give instructions to each and every single one of us. The Bhagavad Gita is like a mirror. When you read the Gita, you will see that it reflects the trials and tribulations that each one of us is facing in our day-to-day lives. And invariably, you will get the answer. And my personal realization is that the first time I read the Gita, I did not understand anything of it. I should not say that I did not even go to the chapters. Just in the introduction, I was stuck. And I was thinking, I just don't understand it. Because our acharyas have many times said, and Prabhupada always says that you can only understand Shastras in the association of devotees. You cannot do it on your own. Because understanding Shastra is not about intelligence and mental speculation. It is about devotion. And so over a period of time, obviously, you start understanding, but the more you come back to it and you think, I didn't realize this the first time. I didn't think of it when I read it the second time. Oh, this didn't come to me. So the Gita actually reveals itself to you the way you surrender to it. The more you surrender, the more the Gita and the Bhagavatam and all these scriptures will reveal themselves. So that's another reason why we're doing this and we are understanding all this. So yes, Krishna is instructing all of us using his pure devotee as the means of instruction. So Arjuna is actually not an illusion, but this is a leela that Krishna is
problem. Carpet gets wet, they won't take it.
Sorry. Okay. So now let us, because in the Prabhupada says that Arjuna is also the conqueror of ignorance. So what we need to understand is what is ignorance and what is real knowledge. And we have touched on this topic many, many times. Now we all know that this world is a relative place. When we say relative, and this picture kind of, tells us that there could be more than one truth, because this is also true, the orange is also true, the blue is also true, and then orange and blue, whatever is also true. So it is relative. But besides this, what we need to understand is that Krishna is talking about the absolute truth. And in the Bhagavad Gita, he says that bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvam iti sa mahatma sudurlabha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. So here Krishna is talking about he who is actually in knowledge. So it is so important to understand what is ignorance and what is actual knowledge. What, according to all of you, what is actual knowledge? It would be nice if you could unmute and say, what do you understand by actual knowledge? I'm sure a lot of you know this.
Hare Krishna Matji.
Yes,
Humble
Shweta.
obeisance to you. I think spiritual knowledge is knowledge and material knowledge is ignorance.
Correct. Thank you. That's
Okay.
very good. That's very good. Any other comments? Any other points?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes, Prabhupada.
I think before knowing the scriptures, I think this what is your constitutional position, and why am I here? Those three questions, and
Yes.
what do I have to do? So knowing Krishna And then who are you? What is your relationship with Krishna? I think that is the knowledge.
Very, very good. Very good.
Hare Krishna.
Yes. Bhagavati Mataji.
I would say that when one's faith reaches the stage of transcendental knowledge, that
Yes.
is the real knowledge which can help,
Yes. Yes. Correct. So all of these comments are correct. So real knowledge is to go beyond these illusory conditions that we are in and beyond this relative nature of this world. That is real knowledge. So like Pravata Mataji said, that knowledge is knowledge which reawakens your understanding that who is Krishna, what is my relation to Krishna, is Krishna the source of all that exists, all of these things. So we start with the question that should come is rightfully said, who am I? Why am I here? What is the purpose of this life? Where do I go after this life? So these are the questions that a lot of people ask. I'm not saying that I asked these questions. I didn't. I am not that intelligent. So I did not ask these questions. But a lot of intelligent people, and especially today, people are asking these questions that, what am I doing here? What is this life about? And that is real knowledge. Now, yes, we live in this material world. So the material knowledge is important for us to live this life. But that is not the be all and end all. And here I would just like to say a story of Sant Tukaram. I think a lot of you would have heard about Sant Tukaram. He was a great Vaishnav from Maharashtra. And he was a wonderful, wonderful devotee of Lord Vitthal. Right? So he lived on the banks of this river Indrayani, and one day he wanted to cross the river. So he was waiting on the banks of the river for a boatman to come. And at that time there was a yogi just around there. Now this yogi knew and had heard of Sant Tukaram, how great Mahatma he is. So, he wanted to show off how great he himself is, because in front of the Sant, he wanted to show off that, I'm really great. And so what he did is, he saw that the Mahatma is waiting on the bank of the river. And with his yogic powers, with his siddhis, he walked on the water and he crossed the river and he crossed to the other side. And he was, all like proud and, looking at Tukaram still standing on the other side, other bank. Now, eventually, a boatman came there. Sant Tukaram crossed the river, paid the boatman 25 paisa, that, 25p or whatever you consider that. So the point here that is being made by our acharyas is, what was the value of the powers of the yogi? Just 25p, 25 paisa? What is the value of that? You see, Tukaram also crossed the river just by paying that much. So our acharyas are trying to explain to us that yes, the material knowledge is fine. It's, you need it. You need it to live your day-to-day life, but it does not really have any value unless you can relate that also, or you can bring that also in the service of Krishna, right? So real knowledge, what is real knowledge? And we've answered this. Real knowledge is how to utilize everything for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. Now, in today's world, what has happened is that it is a case of the blind leading the blind. There is no real knowledge. Prabhupada used to ask this question a lot of times. Let me just stop sharing this. Yeah, Prabhupada used to, say this question, and he used to say this very often. He used to say that, I forgot the line of thought that I was thinking. Completely lost it. Oh, interesting. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. He used to say this, that, there are so many big universities teaching so many various courses, but is there any place where the science of the soul is being taught? The science of self-realization is being taught? That's not there anywhere. Even today, that is something that's, very often people kind of think that that's something that a retired person should do. Right now, my focus should be on my material life. So it is a case of the blind leading the blind. There is no real knowledge over here. There is complete illusion to what the truth is. If somebody tells you that, money will give you happiness, a good job will give you happiness, a big house will give you happiness, a lot of people tend to believe that. And there is always this thing, you see these big billboards and these advertisements and whatever else, that you need this for yourself. You need the best car to make you happy. You need the best iPhone that's just come out to make you happy. But I'm sure all of us have realized that all of these things do not really give us happiness. They are temporary. Because as soon as you get that, and you've achieved one step, and then you think, I want something more. I want something more. It's just never ending. And because this whole society is it's a case of, like we said, the blind leading the blind. All of us are in this situation now. And there is a very, very interesting story. And I would like to share this so that we all remember what is happening to each one of us. So one day, there was this man. He was bitterly crying, and he had shaved his head, and he was sitting on the side of the road, and he was crying. And another man walked by, and he asked him, why have you shaved your head, and why are you crying? So this man says, have you not heard? And he said, what have I not heard? He said, have you not heard that Sarwal Singh has died? Now, the man who was walking by did not want to confess his ignorance. He thought, my God, this Sarwal Singh must be, somebody that we all should know. And I cannot say to this man that I don't know him. So he said, oh, okay. So he goes to his house, he shaves his head, and he is mourning. And so then, he's in this village, and all the villagers surround him and ask him what has happened. And he says, oh, well, do you not know that Sarwal Singh has died? And the villagers, again thinking that, right, Sarwal Singh is some great entity. We are not aware of it, but we should have been aware of it. So let us follow this. They shave their heads, and they are mourning, and they are crying. And then there's a military parade. So all these military soldiers are walking past through the village, and they're seeing this entire village is in grief, is grieving. So they ask, what has happened? And the same thing is repeated. Sarwal Singh has died. And the military man says, oh, okay, that's sad. So they all, reach the palace, shave their heads, and start crying. So the king asked, why is everybody crying? Why has everybody shaved their head? And the same thing is repeated, the same phrase, Sarwal Singh has died. And the king, he thinks, oh my God, everybody knows who Sarwal Singh is except for me. And I cannot prove to be ignorant in front of my people, these people who work for me. So he says, okay, so he shaved his head, he starts mourning and crying. And then his minister comes by, and he asks, what is happening? And he, the same thing is repeated, Sarwal Singh has died. And the minister, the first one to admit that he is ignorant, he says, who is Sarwal Singh? So the king says, oh, well, I really don't know. So he says, all right, let's go and ask. So, the king and the minister go to these military men. The military men, obviously, we don't know, but, the whole village was crying. So they say, right, let's go to the village. They go to the village. They reach the first man of the village who was crying, and they say, why are you crying? And he says, well, this man was sitting on the side of the road and he was crying. So they go to this man who was sitting on the side of the road, and he said, who is Sarwal Singh? And he said, well, Sarwal Singh is my donkey. And I am a washerman, and my donkey is so, so important to me. And now that he has died, how will I continue with my work? And so he was crying. Now, the point that we are making with this story is that all of us also get so believe in what is being projected to us as the truth. We sometimes fail to ask questions, is this really the truth that I am being told? I think today's generation, the children do tend to ask a lot of questions, but at least in my generation, if somebody said to me that, and especially if a person in authority said to me that this is right, I would probably fight everybody, go against the family or whoever to say, no, but the teacher has said this, that this is right, so this is right. And that's how we have become so conditioned by ignorance that we are willing to accept anything that is being given to us as the truth. We have to come out of this ignorance. We have to move towards knowledge. And that is what Prabhupada is explaining. That is what the Bhagavad Gita is doing for us, that come out of this ignorance and go towards light. Understand what is real knowledge. So thank you very much for being with me. If there are any questions or comments, corrections.
Hare Krishna Mataji, the story gave me a very good laugh. It's so true, because in material life, we are taught like if you have a good education, then it's always like the donkey, when you tie carrots in front of the donkey and the person with the stick is moving and the donkey is thinking, okay, now I'm going to get it, now I'm going to get it. So from the very beginning of childhood, it's like, okay, study, then get a good job, then do this. So it's always like, okay, I'm going to get it, and it's just the whole life just goes on like that.
True. It's so true. And by the time we come to realize that this was not the actual goal, sometimes it's a bit too late. But of course, it's never too late to start devotional service. But yeah,
Yes.
that's what it is really. What you're saying is so absolutely true, because every day you're taught, it starts right from childhood, like you said, by your parents, by school teachers. You do this, you'll be successful, you'll be happy. You'll do this, you'll be happy. There is no happiness in this material world. There is no happiness.
That's true. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other questions or comments or corrections?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes, Divya Mataji.
Yes, one thing I find it sort of hard to balance is when we are young, we have to sort of study and hard, and obviously we have to work to then we get married, we have to balance the family and the rights. So I think the correct thing is to balance the material life and the spiritual life, but at times this does not happen, especially non-devotees. It does not happen when we are young. As we grow older perhaps, not old, but perhaps older, then about 40s, 50s, then we can have time to think about what am I doing here when things are settled. That's how the way of the world is. So unless you are in a devotees family, you are going to the temple every day, you mix with other devotees, the children mix with each other, you may go to a special Krishna school, then that is a different story, Mataji.
So Puja Mataji, what you've said is so true. The whole point over here is that unless you have this knowledge, and that's why we are talking about from going to ignorance to knowledge. Unless you have this knowledge, you will not know that you even need to balance a spiritual life. Nobody even talks about spirituality. And that is where then this whole thing about book distribution comes forth. Because unless people know about this, unless people hear this, we can see in our society that we have very, very young children, teenagers, young adults, just married with young children. They are able to balance their material and spiritual life very well. Why? Simply because they have the knowledge. I came into spiritual life when I was in my 40s. Why? Because I didn't have the knowledge. I did not have the opportunity. I didn't know anything about all these things. I did not know anything about spirituality. So of course it is the knowledge that will help us. And like you rightfully said, yes, there are some people who are born in devotee families, and that's very fortunate, and some are not. But we all have our own journeys to face, journey to walk on. Everybody has an individual journey, because every soul is an individual. And we can only pray that Prabhupada's hope and desire was that the entire world become Krishna conscious. And we can just pray, hope that we can play a small part and be an instrument to make the entire world Krishna consciousness. The thing is, Puja Mataji, you have to realize that, the divine and the demoniac earlier used to be two different entities, but right now the divine and the demoniac is within us, in each body. So even when we are handing out this knowledge to people, there are people who don't accept it. They don't want it. They don't want to know about it. I know of people who have been coming to the temple, who know things, who have heard about the soul and the super soul, but do not want to commit to a spiritual life, do not want to take on more commitments because they are happy where they are. They feel that I'm okay. Like Prabhupada once, when he was giving a class, and he said, in your next life, you will be a dog. And a young man got up from the seat and he said, I really don't mind being a dog. So what do you do with such people? You just have to understand and accept that they are on their individual journey. And if they are wherever they are on the ladder, if they don't want to take the escalator which Prabhupada is giving, then we can't do anything. We can only try.
That's happened in our families as well. When we try to talk to them, they say this is our life. One life is there, because not everybody, I must say, in the family are devotees, or they do pray in their own ways. But when we start talking about Krishna or other things, they said this life is for enjoyment. We have got this. We have been given only this life. This is for enjoyment, and that is very common. So the question is, as you say, how do we go from there? We can't do much about it when the adults making the decision.
Yeah, no, we can't do much. The thing is, see, we don't want to have a situation where everybody feels like, there's a lot of negative feeling in the air. We can't do that. But all we can do is we can try and talk to them. We can give them prasad. We can give them books. That's all. Because everybody is on their own journey. Now, the
Yes.
thing is, a lot of the people, majority of the people are in the karma kanda stage of the yoga ladder, where
Yeah.
they think that I will perform my karma, I will pray to the demigods, I will offer whatever, and I will get the benefit from. So they are at the karma kanda stage. But Puja Mataji, what we have to remember is even that is better than being in the animal stage. So even karma kanda is okay, because Krishna is giving the opportunity to the people in the karma kanda stage to then slowly go up. So it is not like, that situation or their situation is hopeless. Because what we must realize is that we have taken so many lifetimes to come here.
Hmm.
We probably must have been in that stage at some point in this life or in our previous lives. So yes, people will take time. We can try by, like I said, if nothing else, if no philosophy works or if nothing else works, the prasadam. Prabhupada said that prasadam is the best weapon that we have in the Kali Yuga. So try and feed prasadam as much as we can, and that's, and pray for them. Prayers always work magic. Pray for them.
Very nice. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Sandeep Prabhu.
Yes.
Are you okay?
Yes, Mataji. I came back last night from hospital. So yesterday I could not speak because I was in no position, but I asked my son to log in. And
Yes, I saw that. Are you okay? Nothing serious, yeah?
Nothing serious. It was just I was at the temple. So and at car park this happened. So Radharani and Krishna's mercy, everything went well. But two things. First of all, I want to say a big, I don't know how to say thank you to this community. And also the stone story that you said today.
Yeah.
I was the protagonist of this story for last 3 days.
Right.
And I realized that when I was alone in the operation theater and alone 3 days in the ICCU, money, friends, relations, shohrat, fame,
Yeah.
all the power, nothing helps. Only chanting Krishna's name helped.
Yes.
Nothing else. The pain, the agony, nothing helped. And what you're doing is great by telling people this, because had I not joined this group 1 year back, what would I be doing yesterday? And
Prabhu, thank you so much for sharing this. You're sharing your personal realization, and it's touched me. I'm sure it is touching everybody on the group. It's wonderful to hear this.
Yes, and also I've realized the value of being a Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is somebody who has mercy at his heart. So and some resolutions I made and for spiritual progress. And I want to thank everybody. And out of that humility that is being born in my heart, I want to say thank you. And also I want to say sorry if I by mistake hurt anybody in this group. So that's it.
Sandeep Prabhu, thank you so much. And we will continue to pray for your recovery. And the best thing, see, it's funny, but out of adverse situations, sometimes the best things happen.
Yes, Mataji.
And seeing what you're sharing, I just feel that Krishna put you in this situation you were already on your journey, but now he's put you in the lift, on the escalator, that you will just fly up.
Yes, Mataji, it is just like the soul got washed in tears. And I made mistakes by eating too much ghee and samosa and everything. And Krishna helped me in correcting my mistakes when I was agonizing. So it is amazing what this group is doing. I cannot even tell it in words. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Any other comments, questions on today's verse or anything else that you would like to share? Anybody?
Just to say that we are so happy that Sandeep Prabhu is okay. We've all been praying, and nice to hear his voice. We've been inquiring how is he. So nice to hear from him. Thank you, Mataji. Wonderful.
Thank you, Hema Mataji. Thank you. Okay, so if that's it for today, then I shall, all being well, see you all next Wednesday. And please continue to join. And it's great that all of you are joining every evening without fail. So it's really wonderful to see all of you. Thank you very much. Vanchakalpatrubhascha kripa sindhu
Namo Namaha.
Jai.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna devotee.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare
Hare Krishna,
Krishna.
Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.